Welcome to the Stellar Precision Institute with me, Sally. The star for our video today is PHECDA. We look at patterns in human behavior and how they seem to repeat alongside physical astronomical patterns. When you notice these patterns, you can start working with them in small, practical ways. You don't have to believe in astrology, it's about observing patterns. With this star, we're going to see people who can take these small details and turn them into massive impact. Let's take a look at a few lives where this star appears prominently in the chart. Emmanuel Macron, President of France, he has Saturn on the star PHECDA in 8th house. Winston Churchill, Prime Minister of Britain during the Second World War, he had Moon on PHECDA in 11th house. Diana, Princess of Wales, she had Mars on PHECDA in 11th house. Jessica Lange, American actress, she has Saturn on PHECDA in 8th house. The star PHECDA takes its name from the Arabic PHECD, meaning thigh of the bear. It's part of the Big Dipper asterism, known astronomically as Gamma Ursa Majoris. As of the year 2000, it sits at 0 degrees 29 minutes of Virgo. It's a fairly bright white star, magnitude 2.44, spinning rapidly, slightly flattened by that rotation. When you hear the life experiences in our case studies, imagine how reactive you could feel when everything is little things. It could be hard to recognize and celebrate the full power of those little things when you're caught up just getting through daily life. Your star tribe gives you permission to revel in the shared pattern. This is where you get grounding and get out of reaction. It happens very naturally. You don't need to really do anything except reflect. PHECDA people master one skill from every angle. It's built on small actions, but done thoroughly, these small things become powerful. When the same star shows up in human lives, a pattern begins to emerge. Across our PHECDA case studies, the same core expression appears again and again. The pattern that emerges is what I call the devastating power of small things. These interpretations are grounded in physical astronomy. This particular auspice draws from the star's classification, the rarity of the star type, the star's gas envelope, and its proximity to a nearby galaxy. If you have this star activated in your chart, observe whether this pattern appears in your life. In Macron's life, devastating power of small things shows up through finance and philosophy. He is someone who works through detail. He began as a financial inspector analyzing government finances for 4 years, where he was quickly recognized as a top performer. He later advised the Attali Commission on unlocking French economic growth, establishing his technical strength and public finance. He also worked in investment banking, and critics argue his politics favors the elite, earning him the label President of the Rich. His leadership style has been called Jupiterian, suggesting a kind of distant authority. On the philosophical side, Macron studied Machiavelli and Hegel, thinking rooted in realism and the evolution of rational systems. He got a master's degree in philosophy and also worked with Paul Ricoeur, whose work centers on meaning through story and interpretation. Across both finance and philosophy, the pattern is the same: precision with small things. The attention to detail has contributed to his stability as a leader. He is said to have the most stable marriage of the French presidents, and perhaps his wife could speak to his skills in the bedroom. Regardless of whether we see his influence as positive or negative, the auspice holds devastating power of small things. Churchill expressed the same attention to detail through battle scene trauma processing and landscape art. He was held responsible during World War I for the devastating failure against the Turks. The failure cost around 250,000 deaths on the Allied side at Gallipoli. Churchill then resigned his leadership. What happened is failures in cooperation, failures in planning, and hesitations that allowed the enemy to prepare. These failures were profoundly related to the landscape of war. The disaster was a dark weight upon Churchill's soul, which he called his black dog. He turned to painting to elevate his mood. His main subject was landscapes in an impressionist style. The ability to read a landscape is always a military leader's big advantage. Churchill took the lessons from before into the Second World War, and he made a speech that paid attention to landscapes. This famous inspirational speech is called "We Shall Fight on the Beaches." The speech detailed the determination to fight in all landscapes. I'll play a clip of Churchill in his own voice. You can hear the weight of his soul in his voice. He is calm, even peaceful, but there is a weight of grief in his voice. Churchill played a key role in the successful evacuation of Dunkirk in France just before the time of his speech. The situation was a full-on emergency, potentially worse than his past failure at Gallipoli. If not for Churchill's now determined, insistent, and decisive leadership at every stage, 338,000 soldiers could have been killed or captured. Churchill ordered the Navy to assemble many small ships, or little boats, that could get into the shallow beaches. So beneath his grief, there is incredible strength and fortitude. There is impact in his attention to and portrayal of the landscapes of war.
We shall fight in France. We shall fight on the seas and oceans. We shall fight with growing confidence and growing strength in the air. We shall defend our island, whatever the cost may be. We shall fight on the beaches. We shall fight on the landing grounds. We shall fight in the fields and in the streets. We shall fight in the hills. We shall never surrender.
Perhaps you can already see the pattern. In Diana, this expression, small things done thoroughly with massive impact, shows up through media and public relations. She was exceptionally skilled with the media. Diana built relations with people across the entire industry, from royal correspondents to paparazzi to editors, broadcasters, and media owners. She knew how the system worked, and she worked it deliberately. Di learned to cultivate her appearance and her public speaking skills. Her sense of timing was precise. She understood when a moment mattered and how to shape it, whether through a photograph, an appearance, or a gesture. She was constantly curating impact and managing the scheduling of her PR. It was often the smallest things, her presence, her attention, a touch, a hug, that carried extraordinary emotional power. She brought compassion to suffering fearlessly. Her intellectual struggles and her heartbreak in her marriage was balanced by this public relations commitment. Diana was committed to her potential in her royal role and fought for opportunities intensely. Despite her perfect English accent and pedigree as aristocracy, Di's friends tended to be foreign wives. One clue to her whole persona is that she actually had Indian blood through one ancestress. Her ability to connect did make her a force as a humanitarian. That connection translated into real influence, and that same power had consequences. Her visibility and public preferment created discord within the royal palaces. The attention Diana received came at a cost, including her eating disorder, and never more than in her love life, where secrecy reigned. After her divorce, she was relentlessly pursued by paparazzi, harassed, provoked, chased, and of course, that dynamic played a role in her death. Again, we see the same pattern, small things carried out with precision, creating devastating impact, literally devastating impact. Her heart was displaced to the right side of her chest by the harsh impact of the car crash. For Jessica Lange, the pattern shows up as psychological intensity, both in her acting and in love. Early in life, she immersed herself in experience, traveling widely, living as a bohemian hippie, studying the arts, often in unstable conditions. That depth of experience became the foundation of her work. As an actress, she was drawn to psychologically complex roles. She didn't approach them lightly. She went deep, often pushing herself to emotional extremes. At times, the intensity brought her close to breakdown. In Frances, Jessica portrayed an actress with schizophrenia and paranoia who was put in an insane asylum. In Blue Sky, she portrayed bipolar disorder and mood swings. In Long Day's Journey into Night, she portrayed substance abuse and clinical depression. Such low mood is also in the film Sweet Dreams, where she played singer Patsy Cline. In The Great Lillian Hall, she portrayed dementia and cognitive decline. In the TV series American Horror Story, she portrayed narcissism and personality disorders. In A Streetcar Named Desire, she portrayed complex trauma and delusional disorders. This is the pattern. Small emotional details of women's mental states explored thoroughly, becoming powerful on screen. Jessica's been described as an uncontrollable force. That same intensity carried into her personal life. She had one child with Russian ballet star Mikhail Baryshnikov and two children with longtime love Sam Shepard. She didn't marry them, but an early marriage with photographer Paco Grande helped shape her life. And she is also a professional level photographer as a kind of hobby. Jessica's relations with people were often consuming. Adoring masculinity, she formed deep attachments, and with Sam, the connection came with disruption. pulling him out of existing lives, reshaping dynamics around them. There is a strong gravitational quality there. Across both her work and her love life, we see the same mechanism, a deep psychological focus, applied in small, precise ways, that creates outsized impact. Jessica felt that motherhood and grandmotherhood gave her the opportunity to stop being the center of the universe, so she cherishes this mothering role. Her intensity and impact isn't neutral. Film and performance amplify what they portray. Subtle emotional cues, repeated at scale, shape how people see relations with others, identity, even morality. So the question becomes one of awareness. Morals give us empathy, a better basis for acting skills. How are these finely developed abilities, this attention to detail, this emotional precision, actually affecting others? Because with PHECDA, the pattern is always the same. Small things, done with intensity, carrying devastating power. There is something profoundly intimate about how precisely these celestial bodies echo in human life. Human lives show repeatable patterns when specific fixed stars activate in the birth chart. Another thing about PHECDA people is their psychology that is very deep. We see another core expression across PHECDA case studies, auspice number 2, NLP, or neuro-linguistic programming, a type of psychology. In the physical astronomy used as the basis for our auspices, this auspice is based on repeated numerical patterns appearing in the star vectors data and astrophysical data. Let's look at our same case studies. Across these lives, we see the same underlying expression. NLP auspice is revealed in Emmanuel Macron's life, in that his father is a neurologist, and also we see in Emmanuel's own philosophy studies. Emmanuel's father is a doctor and professor, focused on non-surgical human and cat brain treatment. NLP is not surgery either, but it is a psychology grounded in the physical. The N stands for neuro. Besides, Emmanuel himself has a strong philosophical streak and graduated with a master's degree in philosophy, as described previously. I've talked about Churchill's black moods. With the NLP auspice, we're looking at his treatments for it. He had very dark moods of despair, apathy, and low feeling after 250,000 fighters died, due, it was said, to Churchill's own incompetence. Imagine if you were the cause of one death. 250,000 must be overwhelming, and the public blame. Churchill took medication from Lord Moran, his doctor. This included barbiturates for sleep and amphetamines and sedative for energy and mood. Not sure if this gave him resilience, but resilience under pressure is a principle of NLP. He took naps, that could help. Let's look at other NLP principles that do show up in his approach to his mental health. This is important because he later came into a situation in the next World War in which 338,000 fighters were at risk. Churchill reframed his dark moods as his black dog, which fits with an NLP principle of reframing. It's an NLP technique. The black dog became a companion he could live with and deal with. A quote from Churchill History will be kind to me, for I intend to write it. And he did. It fits with the importance of language in NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. Churchill not only did landscape painting, as we've seen, he also did bricklaying as a kind of physical meditation. This sits with the NLP principle of anchoring or physically grounding one's mental state. He was very disciplined in his routines, balancing intense work with afternoon naps and leisure activities. This fits with the NLP principle of rewiring patterns of behavior. In Churchill's important speech, "We Shall Fight on the Beaches," he engaged his listeners in visualization, another NLP principle. He spoke to the stark reality, the scenes of war, and the vision of victory. Let's look at Diana, Princess of Wales, and how NLP shows up in her life. She had treatment for her eating disorder and probably for the trauma of her marriage. Some of her therapists in the 1990s were Susie Orbach, Dr. Paul Dawson, Marissa Peer, and close friend and counselor Julia Samuel. Dr. Paul Dawson is author of the book Psychology of Hidden Influence, How to Use NLP and Hypnotic Mind Control. So Diana is connected directly to an NLP writer. Whether he used NLP techniques with her is not confirmed. Marissa Peer has a signature treatment method based partly on NLP. It's called Rapid Transformational Therapy. I see it advertised on YouTube. The method blends NLP with hypnotherapy, psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, and neuroscience. Marissa uses her method for behavioral change and also uses NLP for improving a person's inner dialogue. Jessica Lange spent her career portraying women's mental issues. She grounded herself in a creative and health-oriented lifestyle since the formative stages of her career. So it could be said she embodies some of the principles of NLP, such as anchoring in the physical. When she was young, I mentioned that she married Mexican photographer Paco Grande. They traveled about the USA and Mexico in a van, and she speaks fluent Spanish. This embodies the linguistic aspect of neurolinguistic programming in a sense. I firmly believe that having another language allows us to reframe our experiences in another way. Also a principle of NLP, reframing. Jessica also speaks passable French. She used that language with Mikhail Baryshnikov, her Russian dancer husband, de facto husband, with whom she had a child. Jessica has always been averse to psychotherapy. She admitted having had depression, and she liked to use photography as a therapeutic outlet. In her acting career, her roles have been so emotionally intense. Sometimes it almost got her to emotional breakdown. I do think that she could benefit in learning of this star in her chart. Her love life has been volatile, and I think that with the impact that film has, the character of the actors has an outsized impact on the viewer and on society in general. We've looked at some of Jessica Lange's films and the mental illnesses she's portrayed. She has tended to play a mad woman on the edge. Scenes with Jack Nicholson had to be reshot sometimes as they crossed a line. Perhaps we should ask how much we as human beings are subscribed to acting as soft porn. The stars can call on us to ask some hard questions when we see the evidence stacked up. I don't have this star activated in my own chart. Do you? It's at 0 degrees and 29 minutes of Virgo. See the description of the video below for more information on how to locate a star in your chart. The star patterns have been remarkably consistent. Each of you likely has dozens of these stellar activations in your chart, maybe 80 to 120 out of a total 500 or so named stars. Look out for an upcoming webinar on the Stellar Precision Framework. Thank you for watching.